Rod Emory here from Emory Motorsports. I've been racing and restoring Porsches for just over 30 years. In the workshop, we build a few different types of cars. Our Emory Outlaws, Specials, RS, and then our regular restorations or preservations of cars that we come across. Today I want to take you on a tour of a 1959 356A Coupe Emory Outlaw that we converted to right-hand drive for a client out of the UK. With this project, I wanted to find a car that really needed to be saved, and I reached out to a friend of mine on the East Coast that had told me about a car that his uncle bought years ago with the intention of restoring it himself. But this particular car had a pretty rough life, and it was the perfect candidate for building this right-hand drive Outlaw for us. When the car got to us here on the West Coast, it had this terrible yellow paint job, a Volkswagen engine, a homemade wiring harness, and just really rough around the edges. The door jambs were bondoed up, and it was just definitely in need of our services. So once we disassembled it, we put it in our octagon rotisserie, and then rotated it up and really inspected what we had. And, we cut out the old floors and realized that this thing needed everything, which most of them typically do. After the car was media blasted by our friends at Pacific Coast Powder Coating, we then discovered that there was lots of Bondo in the nose. So we knew that we were going to have to repair the nose and do new floor pans, new longitudinals, new heater areas, and all the typical stuff that they need underneath. But that really doesn't scare us because that's what we're here for, to get these cars back to shape. The fun part for me is once we get the structural part of the car back to shape, is that then we can go through and start adding some of the cool little Emory tricks. One being, on an Outlaw car, we still leave the 356 front suspension or type suspension, but we go through and modify the front beam so that we can lower and raise the car to whatever ride height we want. We also add more camber and caster into the spindles, which are going to make the front suspension handle better. And then in the rear of the car, we cut the torsion tube out of it, and then we put one of our new assemblies that we build that has the ears to take the 911 rear trailing arms, as well as an adjuster that allows us to adjust the ride height from inside of the car. Once the suspension work is done on the car, then we finish up the exterior sheet metal work on the car, which this car needed the areas in front of the doors, needed the rockers done. It also needed the doors repaired and, the typical nose and tail work. One of the things that was fun on this car is that we converted it to right-hand drive. So in order to do that, we cut the gauge area out of the car and swapped it with the glove box area, and then did the modifications necessary for the steering shaft and pedal assembly and throttle and all those other aspects that needed to be dialed in to convert it to right-hand drive. Once the sheet metal work and structural work was done, then we louvered the deck lid, also cut holes in the nose of the car and did mounts so that we could do body mount fog lights, cut a hole and rolled the edge for the gas filler so that we could do a gas filler through the hood. And then once all the metal work was done, then we sealed the car with an epoxy primer after prepping the metal for final sealer. And then we started doing the body work, getting the car perfectly straight so that we could get just the right paint job on the car. We painted this car with a 2007 factory Porsche color GT Silver. What I love about GT Silver is that it's got a lot of black or pitch in it. So in certain lights, it really, highlights the body lines on these cars and makes them look just amazing. Once the exterior, the final paint was put on the car, then we back mask all the painted surfaces and then do all the seam sealing, and then undercoat the car, giving it a little bit of texture but also sound deadening. And then on top of the undercoating, we always use Rust-Oleum industrial enamel in satin black, and we top coat all of the surfaces with that for a couple of reasons. Protection, number one. That stuff is so durable, but also it's easy to touch up if we need to, and gives us just the right kind of factory look finish, but with a modern product that's super durable. Once we unmask the car and start the assembly, we start with doing all of the lights and electrical and oil lines and brake lines, and get the car ready so that we can put the engine and transmission in. In this car, we used a 901 5-speed transmission, and we mated that with a 2650cc Fat Performance 914 based engine that we put a 911 fan shroud, upright fan, and Weber carburetors. Now this engine is really a great engine for these 356s. Has just about 205 horsepower, lots of torque, and just a super drivable engine. Perfect combination if you're going to stick with pushrod, which we did in this particular car. Once the car was all assembled, then my favorite part is to really take it out and drive it. And Drew Phillips took some amazing photos here that just show all the little details that went into the styling of the car. We used a 5.5 by 15 alloy wheel that still looks like the old steel wheel. Did those in a satin black, and then the brakes are an aluminum hub that we build that looks like the old drum from the outside, but then it's got a 4-piston caliper and vented disc behind it. And then we had our friend that does sign painting. She painted the Pegasus horse on the fenders just in front of the doors. Some people put stickers on their cars. We prefer to go back old school and hand paint those on. And there's the mirrors that we chose for the car are a radot mirror, which was very popular back in the 50s and 60s, and gas filler through the hood straps, body-mounted fog lights, and the louvered deck lid with GT style or 911R style flip over hinges on the deck lid so that you can really access the engine and show that off. And on the interior of the car, we got together with Spinnybeck and did a basket weave blue leather, and then Josh at Relicate came up with the perfect complementary leather for the smooth leather in the interior. And I had a friend of mine, Spencer, that has a really cool company here called Kill Spencer in Los Angeles. They're known for building really high-end handbags and backpacks. They even make their own basketballs and footballs. I got together with Spencer and said, hey, let's build a special set of seats for this car. And he and his craftsmen in the shop did an amazing job doing the seats on this with basket weave centers and smooth side bolsters. And all of that came together in just a perfect combination with this blue up against the GT silver. And, taking this car up in the hills and driving it was just such an enjoyable experience because it's right-hand drive. So I typically only drive left-hand cars up in Angeles Crest or Los Angeles Hills. So it was fun to drive a right-hand drive car and just really, capture the essence of what this car is all about. It has that vintage GT look, but, 205 horsepower, great shifting transmission, great brakes, and just overall an amazing car to drive. Thank you for digging into all the details with me here on the cars that we build at Emory Motorsports. Make sure you also follow us on Instagram @RodEmory so that you can get a behind-the-scenes look as we're building the cars. Until next time, take care.